Hello. Okay, so hi everyone. So I'm going to start the lecture today remotely. So this is new thing for me as well. So I don't know, it could be awkward, but let's try this. So let me actually share my screen for now. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. So, okay, let's go back to HTML. And then we're going to actually repeat what we did last time and then extend from the example that we did. So yeah. So last time we looked at HTML. Yeah, we want to actually repeat what we did last time because this is actually this lecture is going to be probably the last lecture that we we are going to cover HTML in detail, and then like after this point, I'm gonna leave it up to you guys to find what you need. But basically, we're just gonna need like a basic building blocks and how to use HTML tag, and hopefully you'll be able to build what you want, and it's fairly simple. So let's repeat. So we actually did made some content last time. I don't know if you remember that. So everyone has this my website.txt file, and then I ask you to upload the HTML file. So let me actually do this one again. So let me go back to my editor. Let's see if I have my website.txt somewhere. Okay. So let me open that. So I'm just gonna grab this thing and then open a new file in my editor, which is atom.io. And hopefully you will use one of the modern programming editor instead of Notepad or TextEdit. So here, I'm gonna just paste it. So last time what I asked you was like you would need to have a title of the website. So title of the website is here. And purpose of the website. So let's see, I'm looking for a full stack programming internship. That's the purpose of me running this workshop, the website. Email and one or more social media handles. That's good. I think I have email and Twitter handle. And then short bio or greeting. And then it should include my affiliation. So this is my bio. This is actually a long line. So typically your text editor will have an option to wrap the text. So if you go to view, in my case, I'm going to toggle up, and it's going to add add a line breaks at the end. But basically it's just like what we see. In fact, there's no line break in content. So again, you can see this is line 11 and this is line number 12, which means this is actually one line. Okay, so this is my bio. And then I had this a bulleted list of technical skills and bulleted list of your favorite movie scenes. So let's see. I have technical skills in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Those are three, let's say, programming language that I like or I'm capable of. Favorite movie scenes. We talked about the staircase scene from Joker. Let me add one more. another staircase scene from Parasite, which just won Oscar yesterday, or was it the day before? On Sunday. Okay. So basically this is going to be my content, and I'm going to save it as my website .html. And I'm going to save it in my desktop, although it looks pretty messy. Exist. Let's say I'm going to use today's date just to differentiate. So, okay, it's going to give me the whole file. I'm going to toggle tree view. Okay, so I don't know if you can see okay. Hopefully you can see all the text. So let's just open it in the web browser. So I'm going to open Chrome, open a new tab. So if you're using Mac OS, you can open it from Open File and Desktop. This is the thing that I created. And then immediately what you see is a bunch of text. There is no line breaks, no spacing at all. So the reason why it looks this way is because that because the file extension is HTML, the web browser is like going to parse it as if it was HTML file. I mean, it is HTML file. It just do not have right set of HTML tags. So this is how what we get. Again, if you're using Microsoft Windows, what you could have done is to drag and drop file. So let's say you have this, what is it? Like the file explorer, I guess. And then find the file and drag and drop. And it's going to give you the same local HTML file. Okay, so this is what we did last time. So let's start over. So we open it on the web browser. The interesting thing that we saw is that, like, you know, because the web browser is going to read it as an HTML file, it's not going to preserve all the spacing or line breaks that we had in the editor. So for example, let me see if I added this extra spacing and then save it and then go back. If I refresh, you only see one space in between O and N, but all the extra spacing is overlooked. So again, it's going to keep the space up to 1, but more than that, it's not going to present it in the HTML file. So that's that. Okay, so there are many HTML tags, and obviously I don't know all of them. Being able to find this essential technique, essential skill that you got to have. There are many good resources, and then I particularly ask you to be familiar with this w3schools.com, and then it's going to have all the tags. So let me click it, and then here you can basically look up any HTML tag that you would like, or vice versa. So let's say if you want to create a link, a hyperlink, and then what you should be able to do is search the right tag. So let's say W3 schools, create a hyperlink HTML tag, or simply hyperlink HTML tag. And then it's going to, hopefully the very first page that you will see is one of the page that is listed. So actually this page is the page that is listed in this reference. So yeah, and then you can also try it yourself, meaning press this button and you can see all the code, and if you run it, you'll get the result on the right side. So here we have hyperlink. You can change the text. Click here and then run it again, and then it's going to be updated on the right side. And if you click it, it's actually a working prototype. Okay, so again, I highly recommend this website. It's like almost everyone used this website, even me today. There are some interesting cheat sheets that you can refer, but you know, it's going to have all the HTML tags, and then you'll be able to use it kind of like a cheat sheet whenever you see HTML tag that you don't really know. So this is basically a basic syntax of HTML element. So you have, let me see if I can. So this is a starting tag, and then this is ending tag, and then starting tag has tag name, and then ending tag has the tag name, and then there's a backslash in front of it, and obviously tag name has to match, and then sometimes you have attribute, and then you assign attribute with a certain value, and this is the basic syntax. And between these tags, you have some sort of contents. The content is wrapped around with an opening tag and closing tag. The closing tag should have backslash with the same name, same tag name. Opening tag can have one or more attribute, and it uses assignment syntax where you put name and then you put value, and typically you can imagine that we will always use double quotation mark, or if it's not numeric value, you don't have to use double quotation mark, or it could be single quotation, or you don't really need quotation mark actually, but it's nice to always use double quotation as a habit. Even though you don't use double quotation mark, it's like, I mean, it doesn't mean that web browser is not gonna be able to parse it. Usually optional, sometimes required. Some reserved attributes such as class ID, name, href, meaning that you know, sometimes like we're gonna actually come back to class and ID and how we're going to use it to make connection with other technologies such as CSS and JavaScript. So this whole unit is called as HTML element. More on attributes. Any HTML element can have attributes. They provide additional information about the element and always specified in the start tag, which I should better be consistent in terms of term, opening tag. And attributes usually come in name, value pair. And last time, one of the problem that I had in last presentation, when I put like quotation mark in Google Docs, is going to add like, you know, this like stylized double quotation mark, which is not which is something that the web browser is not going to not be able to parse. So you should actually use double quotation mark without this style factor. Okay. So here's an example. Actually, so I added a new slide here. We're gonna look at adding links using this a tag. So a tag is composed of course, like tag name, and then you can see the closing tag has the same tag name with backslash here, and then content is wrapped around. But one href attribute is actually required attribute for a tag. So href attribute is the attribute that that we assign with URLs to the web page or content that we're going to open. So it provides we can have two different kinds of URLs in href attribute. The first one is absolute URL, where basically we are providing the full URL for the document, including the protocol. So protocol, what I mean by protocol is this either HTTP : / or HTTPS : / or there are some other protocols like mail to or FTP or RMTP. Like there are many protocols that are allowed in URL, but mostly we're going to use one or the other, HTTP : / or HTTPS : / basically the difference between HTTP and HTTPS is just one letter at the end. S, I guess, I don't know exactly what it represents, but I think it means secured. So let's actually find it out. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Okay, so it's a secured protocol, which basically means that like when we exchange data over internet, all the data is encrypted if you're using HTTPS. What does that mean? So if we use HTTP : / so let's say we requested a web page to a server, and the server is going to send data to us, and then that data is literally file code. And then one way to make a metaphor, one way to make an analogy is kind of like a sending postcard. For example, if you go abroad, and then let's say you're in, I don't know, France, and you bought a postcard in front of Eiffel Tower, what you typically do is just send a postcard from there to your parents, and then the stuff that you write on the postcard is actually like it's open to everyone. Like open to everyone meaning open to people along the way. Like possibly someone from post office can read what it is. Possibly someone like mailman could read what it is, although they're not going to read too much. They're not interested in. But like basically, there's no envelope that's going to cover up the content. Basically, it's open to everyone. HTTPS is kind of like a letter inside envelope. So people along like in the middle cannot see unless they decrypt it. which is probably not allowed, right? So a lot of times, like maybe static website, like, getting files are probably fine with HTTP, but like if the server has some of your personal information and it is sending you without a secured protocol, maybe someone in the middle can hijack the data and then you like abuse your personal information. So typically people these days, unless it's like static website, they would recommend the HTTPS. So it's not something that you do like, but like it's just a protocol that you choose to use so that like, data will be secured. Okay, that was probably too long explanation about this HTTPS, but it's nice to know. Relative URL describes the path name to a file relative to the current document. So let's say current document at the moment right now is in desktop. And then let's say if I have a file name called my, let's say publication, because I write publication, and then it means that it's going to look up this HTML in the same folder that the current document is in. Or you could just specify like file path. For example, let's say I'm going to create a folder called public, and then I have a bunch of HTML file. I would have to specify this path name, given that like current document is like the folder that has current document is going to have a folder name public, and then inside that folder it's going to have my publications.html. If you want to go upward, like go on one level up to in your folder, you can put // which means it's going to go up and then find this HTML. Of course, you can specify any folder structure here as well, like public. Again, it's going to go up and then find this particular HTML. Okay, so so this is required attribute. And then one thing that we talked about briefly is target attribute, which is basically whether we want to open that file in current tab or current window or in a new tab. So let's actually try that. So remember this try it editor. I'm going to refresh it. Here, if I click it, right now it's using this as a window, like the simulated window. But if I refresh it, run it again. So if I click it, I'm gonna get the target website on this particular window. But if I use target equal to _blank and then run it, well, it looks exactly the same. If I click it, it's going to open a new tab. So this could be useful in case where, if someone is on your website, if that user click any link on your website, let's say it's going to go to that website, which means that they're going to lose your website. So if you want to keep them in your website, you might just want to open any new HTML page in a new window so that you can keep them in the your website, and typically true for any company website. Okay, so that's that. So let's go back. So let's use some of the HTML elements that we have here. So H1 was header, P was paragraph, div was actually, we're going to look at it later, but div is like a generic element, generic in block element. It's just going to put like a line break at the end, but basically it's like a 1 unit of content, and we can add a button and so forth. So let's go back to our content and then add a few things. So let's say H1 and then close it. So, and then looking for full stack programming internship, I want it to be slightly smaller. So I'm going to use H2, which is basically a second level header. And then here, one thing that I could do is put div element. And then, so let me actually save it and then look at the file. So I'm going to refresh. So I got the first level header, second level header, and then email address, which is, you know, what we wanted. But this time I wanted to use this A tag. So I'm going to start A, and then close A. But basically A tag requires attribute called href. And then what I would like to do is to for users to be able to click it and then send me an email with this email address. So this particular protocol that I'm going to use is mail to, and basically put my email address, and I just saved it, and then I refresh, and now it's hyperlink. Basically, the default style of hyperlink is like blue colored text with underline. So if I click it, what's going to happen? If I click it, it's going to open my favorite email platform and then let me send an email to myself, actually, in this case. Okay, so that's that. Although you can find a way to, you know, play with it by putting different thing, you know. So it's always nice to match the label with actual content. So let's say I could possibly use my website to send an email to Provost, even though it looks like it's my email address. So if you click it, now you are sending an email to Provost. Please don't do that. Okay, so let's go back to my own address. How about Twitter? Let's add a Twitter. So I'm going to add div. So the reason why I add div is to actually make line breaks between you know, contents. So right now, Twitter and the intro does not have a line break in between. But if I add div element, it's going to put a line break at the end. So if I save it, and then you see like now the content is in the next line. As I actually have that in all the content, maybe up to here. So okay, hopefully everyone should know how to put a link to their social media handle using a tag. So I'm gonna copy this guy and then paste it, although this is not the URL that I want. So what's my URL? What's the URL to my Twitter handle? I don't actually know, so I'm gonna go there. Or, yeah, I could go there. probably profile. Okay, so this is the Twitter handle and then URL to my Twitter. So I'm going to put it there. You can see it's using HTTPS. To save it, if I click it, and then it's going to create this hyperlink. And I don't know if you noticed, but like, sometimes it's blue and sometimes it's purple. So blue means that it's the website that you have never visited. Purple means that it's the website that you visited before. So let's say right now, if I click it, it's going to let me go to my handle, which is cool. But let's say a random Twitter handle, which is a website that I have never visited. So if I save it and refresh it, I get this blue colored hyperlink because I never visited this particular website. So if I click it, oh, nice, this account doesn't exist. Great. Maybe I can grab that handle for myself. But like, one thing that I don't like about this website yet is that it's just gonna open the handle in its the current window. So let me actually restore my Twitter handle. And everyone remember what the attribute was for opening a tab, like a new tab. It was actually target _ blank, and then I saved it. So again, it's still purple, but if I click this time, it's going to open a new tab instead of, so that if I click it, like I get the website. Okay, so that's href. And then there are a few more things that we wanted to do. Let's go back, let's revisit technical skills later. The other thing that we could have done, if we use P, which is basically HTML tag for paragraph. Oops. The cool thing about the paragraph tag is that it's going to add one more line break after its closing text. So let me actually save it and then refresh it. It's going to add extra line breaks because it's a paragraph. You want to have some margin between paragraphs. So it's probably better looking at the moment. Yeah, but typically later you'll be able to control these like margin, style, in general with CSS code. Okay, so let's use P tag for now. How far are we at? Yeah, I mean, let's not add a button for now. So I think we did basically did up to this part. Okay, another thing that we looked at last time was empty elements. Basically, empty element is HTML element that has no content, so that you don't have to close it because you're not it does not wrap around anything at all. So empty element do not have an end tag or closing tag, just for the sake of being consistent with the previous term, such as BR element, which indicates a line break. And then we gave you this example. And then I ask you to add this stuff. But let's look at the image tag a little bit with more detail. So image tag is going to be really useful for you because like you want to have a lot of image in your website. Otherwise it's going to be just text. So image tag has one required attribute, which is called source. And it's basically very, very similar to href attribute that we saw of a tag. Basically, but this time it's going to expect a URL to an image file. And you can use relative URL and absolute URL. So yeah, let's actually have an image file. Oh, so before we do image file, one thing that I wanted to do was having a hyperlink to your affiliation. So here, where's my affiliation? So this is the affiliation. So I'm going to add href and http vt.edu, and then close with this a tag. And let's check. Now I have this hyperlink with Virginia Tech. It's hard to see, but yeah, basically I have a hyperlink to Virginia Tech website. And then you can see this like a little icon, lock icon. This indicates that we are using HTTPS protocol. So connection is secure. But they're like, if you use HTTP, like a non-secure protocol, sometimes it's gonna just change, like, redirects to HTTPS version website. Okay, so what we were going to do was add an image. So what kind of image would be nice? So let me actually create a folder, because it's in the desktop. It's kind of, there are too many things. So let me actually create a folder, HTML practice, and then I'm going to put this example that we've been using inside this. Okay, so let me actually open that folder. And I'm, okay, probably that's not what I want. I want it, maybe I can open the folder. Okay, so it's gonna give me the file hierarchy, which is basically just one file. But then I wanted to add like one image here. So let's download an image. Like let me actually look up my picture, because it's my website. So image.google Sang-won Lee. Okay, some of them are me. This is me. This is me. Obviously, these are not me. You can tell this is like younger version of me, believe it or not. So let me actually use the most recent version. And one thing that I showed you last time is to be able being able to find the URL by clicking this right click on the picture and then get the copy image address. And then if you go back, you get this image address. And then you have to make sure that that ends with image file extension. Okay, so what we want to get was, rather than using absolute URL, let's try relative URL, which means that I'm going to download a file. So let me actually save image as, and I'm going to find my own folder and then call, name the file sang.jpg. Okay, so let's close this embarrassing tab. And then let's say, where would I put this? Maybe right before email. So relative URL, I'm going to use /, which means that it's going to look up the current directory and then pass like the file name, and then save it. Let's go back to browser. Where's my thing? Okay. I'm gonna open it by drag and drop. Now it cannot find the image. Interesting. So let's debug it. Oh, because I put the wrong file extension. I save it. Now I get this giant obnoxious image. You know, maybe it's too much. Maybe the size of it is too much. So let's go back to the side. So we looked at this required attribute, but there are other optional attributes. One of them is width, and then you can specify width and pixel value, height and pixel value, and this alt, we're going to look at it later. But let's check this out. Like, you know, so last time we looked, I told you how to use inspector, right? Inspector, you can change the content on the fly and then see what it's going to look like. So let me open the inspector by right-clicking on the web page and then press this inspect menu. So one very useful function of inspector is to actually put inspector right next to the content or right next to the web page. So if you see this like a 3-dot menu, and then you can actually put this inspector to the right, to the bottom, to the left of this website. So I'm going to put it to the right, and then now it's actually my website, but then inspector is on the right side. And then I don't know if you remember this, like this is a very useful item to locate code per element. So this, if I click it, is going to locate this particular code. Let me click this guy. Then it's going to highlight the relevant code. So, or it does the other way around. So if I hover over on a particular code, it's going to highlight the corresponding HTML elements. Okay. So what we're going to do, so we're going to try width. So right now on the right side, you can see that this is 800 by 534, which is too big. So you can double click it to change, add any attribute, or you can right click and add attribute, and then say width is, what would be nice? Like maybe quarter of what it is right now. Okay, so now at least it's not as obnoxious as before, at least to me. And you can of course see the updated one. So it's 200 by 133.5, which is basically they reduce the height proportionally. What happens if I specify height? So I don't add an attribute, height is going to be, let's say, maybe 400, just for the sake of testing. Oh, now it's like it's stretched vertically, which is not exactly what I want. So let me actually get rid of width attribute. And then now it went back to this giant picture. So let me actually make it smaller by saying it was 150. Okay, so you got the idea. So you can, the two things, the first one is using an inspector is a very good way to try out. The one caveat is that it's not going to update your file. No matter what you do here, it's like your file stayed the same, which means that no matter what we do in the inspector, the file and the web server stay exactly the same. So this could be good or this could be bad. Like this could be good in a way that you can try out various things in the local page. Like downside of it is that like you have to actually make the change in the original code. So let me if I refresh the page, all the changes that I made will be lost. So let me refresh it, and it's still giant picture. So I'm gonna go back and then add width or height. 150 was good. In this case, I'm not going to use a double quotation mark because it's numeric value, even though if I save it and then refresh it, it's going to add a double quotation by default. Like that's what the web browser is doing. What if I wrap with single quotation? It still works, but it still changes to double quotation mark. So it's again nice to use double quotation in general. Okay, so that's that. So let's say you have a website and you have maybe like hundreds of images that you want to include in a web page, and then having 100 of image in your file structure is not going to be good, because like there's going to be HTML file, there's going to be like JPEG, that's going to be PNG file, which is like make it difficult to find the information that you want. So maybe one nice thing to do is to create like a subfolder. So let me actually create a folder under HTML practice, and then name the new folder images, because this is the folder that I'm going to collect all the images, and I'm going to drag and drop this guy to images. Now what's going to happen? If I do nothing and then refresh the page, it cannot find the right JPEG file, because you see this like the URL, the file and 3/users. That's like basically the absolute path of this relative URL. So because we moved the file to images or subfolder, we have to specify that in this src attribute, source attribute. So if I put this and save it, refresh it, I'm going to be able to get the same image back. Okay, one more attribute that we want to look at is alt. Basically, alt is alternative text. This is specifically for accessibility. For the population with visual impairment, which basically, because they cannot actually see the image, it would be nice to, have some sort of explanation. So I'm going to put add alt attribute and then explain what it is. So basically, this is Sang-won's profile picture, and then you can be more specific. He is smiling and then save it. So it's not gonna make too much difference for you, I guess. Like for you, meaning for those who have sites, but it's gonna make a huge difference for those who are blind because how they use the website is basically they just go over um, between elements, and then whenever they have an image tag, they're like typical. There's going to be some auditor display or read it. Like there's going to be extra, some software that's going to read it aloud. And one way to see whether it has alt text or not is to place your cursor here. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, so I thought what I thought was going to happen is that like to get like the alternative text when I place my mouse cursor. But for some reason, like this Chrome, like this particular Chrome does not have that. Like you used to have that, but maybe not anymore. But basically, to us, it's not too different. But basically, it's going to make a huge change for those who have visual impairment. Okay, so I think that covers image file, but let's just do all the stuff that we were supposed to do. Adding line breaks is using this VR tag. Adding horizontal line could be useful, even though not many people use it. So maybe add some horizontal line here and there, and save it, and see what it looks like. Now it has a particular explicit division. What else can we add? So maybe we can add this input button. Where would I add it? Maybe right after Twitter. Save it. So basically what it does is it's adding an input type element, the type of which is button. So it's going to render a button. And then typically every input element should have a name attribute. We're just going to look at it later. Value is actually the label of the button. Click to submit. And then we can add one online interactive behavior by adding attribute called onClick, and then put JavaScript code in it. So it's gonna create a pop-up message with hello message. So save it. Now we have this new button. So what's gonna happen if I click it? It's gonna give me this alert window. So let's close the inspector for now. And say hello. Another way to accomplish the same thing is to use a button. Basically, button is not an empty element you have to wrap around. But button, and then the content will be a label of the button, and then you have to close it. And then save it. But you want to name it differently. Click to submit to, and then now you have another button, which is basically look exactly the same. The first one has interactive behavior. The second one does not, but possibly we can just grab this guy and then put it there. And then save it, and they have the same behavior. Yes. Interestingly, onClick is probably global attribute where you can, any element can have it. So let me actually put it in this particular paragraph. Now the whole content that is wrapped around by this p tag, and then this p tag has on-click attribute. So it's going to have this same interactive behavior. So let me refresh it. If I click this, even though it doesn't look like I can click it, if I click it, I get this same alert anywhere within this paragraph. What if I do it here? I get it. What if I do it a little bit off? I don't get it. But if I click it inside this paragraph, I get the same interactive behavior. Okay, so that is that. We looked at image tag. So okay, so nested element is basically like the content content, like, you know, this may not necessarily, I mean, it does not have to be text. It could be any HTML element. So basically, HTML elements can be nested, which means the elements can contain elements. All HTML documents consist of nested HTML elements, basically. And then certain HTML tags only make sense within certain HTML tags, like TR is like something that only makes sense under a table. LI is something that makes sense within URL or OL. So the last, and then we already looked at the example where we had this A tag within this div tag, which in our case, that was P tag, right? So here, here I had this another HTML element inside this particular element, which is basically a nested element. So we already looked at this example. But what we're going to do here is to use the list item. One thing that happened here is that, like, if typically if you use like program editor, you'll be able to close a tag. Maybe sometimes you want to debug something, and then like maybe there's a giant, like a very lengthy article text that is inside one HTML element. You can actually collapse it into one line and see what it and see the, like, you know, following HTML tags. And then Atom.io has it, but typically other kinds of editor will have it too. Okay, so let's look at the list items. So I realize I'm gonna spend more time today, probably because I didn't, like, you know, because this is, you know, recording, I can do as much as I want. And then, you know, for those who are familiar with HTML tag, can probably skip some of the stuff in the beginning. But this is primarily for those who are not, like, who use HTML for the first time. And given this is recording, it would be nice to, you know, like have like an extensive session so that you can come back and see again and again whenever you want to. So let's use this URL. So basically, what does URL do? So URL HTML tag, and go to the W3 school. And then if you have this kind of code, let's try it yourself. What you're going to get is this bullet listed item. So UL is stands for unordered list, but if I change to OL, it's going to give me ordered list, which is basically it's numbered item. Okay, let's go back to URL, run, and it's a bullet list item. So it's going to be useful for us to use the to get the to present the technical skills. So let's put technical skills here, and then I have to open a UL tag, and then LI tag, and then now I don't need this dash because it's going to create this bullet list, like the bullet point for me. Sorry about the noise. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for these guys with backslash. And again, because this is nested element, I would have to close URL. So this is this whole unit is a list, and this list has 3 items in it. So I saved it, I go back, and then open it and refresh. I get this nice bullet list item. So I'm gonna use like the same thing. I'm gonna have the same thing for favorite movie scene. This time I'm gonna use ordered item. So let's say OL. And then there's some, strange thing going on with indentation. So save it, refresh it. What I get is ordered list. Interesting thing is that I don't get the movie name. We looked at this last time. And I hope you remember what the reason was. The basic reason was that because the content has this, less than sign and greater than sign, and then a web browser is gonna, like parse it as if it was HTML code. So that's like, there's gonna be a conflict. So again, we're gonna look at it later. But basically, you should be able to also search any information that you want. So greater than sign in HTML, and then go to the very first page, and you have like a HTML character entities, and basically you are asked to use this special entity name for these kind of special character. Okay, so less than is ampersand LT colon, and greater than is ampersand greater than colon. So let me actually grab this guy and then replace. And this is going to be GT. Save it. Okay, so now I get the whole movie name, except there's an extra space right after Joker. So now it looks pretty good. Like, like, I mean, if you remember where we start, it was just bunch of text, like, with no style at all. Now we have a lot of like hyperlinks, image, and even some ordered list. Okay, so I think that's basically covers what we did last time. And then again, like we spent a lot of time already. So we have done A, we have done div. We're going to look at div and span later. We did this. One fun task that I would like you to do is to add a YouTube video on your website. And the YouTube video has this share button. And if you click, like if you find this embed, you're going to get like a HTML tag that you can use to add any YouTube video. So let's open a YouTube and then look up this, like because we're gonna we have this favorite movie scene. We're just gonna look up this staircase scene of Joker. Nice. Okay. probably, I don't know which one is better. Like this is shorter, so I'm going to look at this. And then we don't have to watch it. And then if you go to share, you have this embed option where you get this HTML tag, and you can specify where you want to start from, whether you want to play, like show them the like play control. So I'm going to copy this guy and then put it under Joker and save it and see what it looks like. Yes, now we have YouTube video right below our item. So let's do the same thing for Parasite. So I wonder if I can do the same thing with Parasite. Staircasing. There are a bunch of staircase in this movie because, you know, there are a lot of vertical metaphor used in this movie. Let's do flood. Flood scene where basically the people who lives in semi-basement apartment is having a flood. Again, I don't know why it's not playing. I'm gonna use the share button, embed, and copy this whole thing. And then put it right under this Parasite. And then I would have to say, now it's a flood scene. Okay, so let's go back. Now I got this nice flood scene, flooded home scene, where I can actually play. So yeah, and this is like a, this is using a HTML tag called iframe. So I don't know if you noticed, but like it's using something called iframe. So let's see what it does. Iframe HTML. And then again, it's gonna typically always go to this w3schools.com. What does it do? An iframe is used to display a web page within a web page. So basically, you can put like a nested, you can display a nested web page. So you can see this is like a separate website within the web page. And then you just need to specify URL. And basically, if you go back, it has some other property like, you know, width, but you can, like there's a source attribute, which is basically going to give me a link to this particular URL. So let's just grab it, copy it, and paste it and see what we get. We actually get this URL web page, which is basically full screen YouTube video. Pretty cool. What if I want to make it smaller? Maybe 300, maybe 100. I'm just playing with it. Huh. So obviously, it's just going to change the size of the viewport, but it's not going to change the content. So I better come back. Or what I could do is just change the width to whatever I want and get rid of like height, and hopefully it's gonna change the size proportionally. So I saved it, and then now I get this like a smaller YouTube video, which is cool. So I like 200 better. Nice. Oops. Why? Why? Interesting. Okay, maybe the YouTube video is not available anyway. Let me check. Okay, this is not available, but you guys can grab the URL that works. Okay, so I think that was good repeat from the last time. Like it's not entirely repeat. There was some more new content because I reinforced with some like I went over HTML or image, and hopefully everyone should be able to follow this video and then come to this point where they have this at least it's not fancy, but it's like still a good website to have. It has a lot of information about yourself, so everyone should be able to use this video to get to this point. And then what should we do? Let's just keep moving on. Personally, I wanted to take a break, but cannot take a break. This is actually live to me. So we're going to look at these other types of HTML elements. Semantic HTML elements basically is the HTML element that has semantic meaning, but it does not have any function. Like it does not have any particular style or rendering, but it has its own semantic meaning. For example, article can be used for independent self-contained content. Aside is some content aside from the content it is placed in, like a sidebar, so you can see something on the side. Footer is like something at the end. Header is something in the beginning. Nav is navigation bar. Section is like a certain section within a page. Main is the main content. So basically, these are the semantic HTML element, and this is gonna. But like the one thing that I should tell you is that it's not going to make your HTML page look like this. This is all like CSS that you have to specify, but it's going to have a semantic, like each HTML element has its semantic meaning. So the other way to do it is to use element that has no semantic meaning, and we're going to compare these two approaches later. So we have these two important generic elements. One of them is called div, the other is called span. So let me actually make sure that it's clear that we're talking about HTML tag. Again, sorry about the noise. There's like an Air Force site nearby. So some HTML tags are functional, styled, formatted, interactive. However, most of them are not. Most are not, including this div and span and all the semantic tags that we saw. And then these, but still we need like these generic elements or elements that has no specified rendering at all, style at all, because they're sometimes like a unit of element should share some presentation, particular style, or particular behavior. So div and span is going to be used a lot. So div is basically division, like it represents division, and it's logical grouping of content or elements on the page, and it introduces line breaks at the end. It's not going to add like a extra line breaks like p tag does, like the paragraph tag does, but it's going to add a line break so that it does not at least it's going to add like a divider between div elements. So Obviously, because of the nested element, you can put like a lot of div elements within other div elements that may look like this, but it's very, very difficult to understand what it means and very, very difficult to debug it. So we're going to come back to this, but this is one of the reasons why we encourage people to use semantically meaningful HTML tag like article or header and so forth. Okay, span is very similar to div element, except it is used for phrase element and does not introduce line break. So this is inline element. So let's grab this two thing. My email address is this. So let me actually put this right after paragraph. And then this one, I want to put right after this. So let me save it and see what the difference is. The difference is that, you know, span element is going to not add any line break, but div element is going to add line break before and after. So if you remember the code, this was the code. Let me actually make it smaller. So you can see that let me actually get rid of this for the sake of putting in one line. It looks basically exactly the same. Like the only difference is one is using span, which is an inline element, so it's not going to break line here and here. But because I'm using div element, it's going to break line in front and at the end. So that's the only difference between span and div. So div is going to be useful to divide a web page into multiple parts vertically. Span is useful to add like a specific style within a line. So we did some experiment with span and div element. So basically, there are some HTML elements that are block elements. There are some HTML elements that are inline elements. So P, div, form, header, nav, UL, LI, H1, these are all block elements, which is going to introduce line break before and after. And then these are inline elements, which is not going to add a line break. So you can think of this as like let's say this like red block is actually, the space occupied this particular HTML tag, which looks like H1, H2, probably I think this is P, and so forth. And then this particular thing, you see that like, it's in italic, and it has different style, but it's inline, like it's within the line. So you can probably use this guy, EM, emphasize, to make something italic. So let me actually have some italic. Will be a good place to, I want to emphasize I'm looking for a full stack internship. And then let's come back and then refresh. Now this particular part is in italic. Okay, so let's go back. So we looked at semantic meaning, like semantic HTML tag, and we looked at generic elements. So in like the example on the left side, it's composed of all the element, where on the right side it uses section, it uses article, but it's like the end result is exactly the same. But like the nice practice is to use actually semantically meaningful HTML tag, so that a programmer can see, oh, this is our article part, and this is like a one section, and then have some meaningful structure. And then also this is good for search engine as well. Like the search engine is going to parse any website, and then let's say, like, you know, if you search something in Google, like, you know, like the content that shows, like, let's say HTML tag for iframe HTML, and then this particular thing is not the very first content that appears on the website, right? This is something that happens in the middle. Where is it? Click on try it yourself button to see how it works. Okay, they don't have that. Let me inspect. Okay, so this is something that they grabbed from the web page to show as part of search result, and you can see that this is not the very first element, you know. And then having semantic, like, you know, HTML tag is going to help search engine to grab relevant information and parse the web page so that it can show more effective search result. Okay, so let's go back to the slide. So why semantic elements? It makes it easier for search engines, screen readers, and other machines to identify different parts of your website. For example, you can like have exactly same looking website completely using div or completely using semantic elements, but like, you know, search engine is going to have a better sense. Oh, this is like article, this is figure, and this is footer, and so forth. And also helped you as a developer to keep your site organized, which in turn makes it easier to maintain. So we're going to use this semantically meaningful HTML tag later in our assignment. How much do we have? Okay. So start a code. So in the mywebsite.html, like we did not do anything regarding starter code, but any HTML file, even though, like, you know, without starter code, it's going to be like web browser is going to parse it, but it is a norm to have this particular starter code, and then put your content. So basically, this means that, like, telling the web browser that this document is in HTML5, and then this is like a root element that has all the content or meta information. Head is basically like it includes like meta information and like the title of the website, and body is the visible part. So again, HTML is the root element. Head identifies the head of the document. That is something not visible. Meta is like the element that contains information about the document. Title like gives the page a title. Body is actually the document content. So what we are actually supposed to do is to when you like create any kind of HTML website, you grab the starter code and then put it there, and then grab all the contents. I'm gonna copy this guy, cut this guy, and then put it inside this body. Now it's much longer, but nice thing is that we have this title. So title is basically what you see in this tab. Before this was, let me actually close out of tab so you can see the full title. Actually, this was like name of the HTML file, this guy. But if you put this title element, now it's going to have a proper title. So I can, and then I can change it. It's like Sang website, save it, and now you can change the title of it. If you look at the page source, you get this like a nice structured hierarchical structure of HTML tag. And you can collapse and expand. Yeah, so we haven't like purposely did not introduce this, but like this is like a norm that you have to follow. Every website should have the starter code, and then you can put your content here inside. Okay. We have a few more stuff to do, and I know we are going over time, but you know, this is the perk of doing recording. Maybe I'm gonna have like a shorter lecture next time, but I want to finish this today. Indentation is very important for readability. Indentation by default does not change anything in terms of functionality, in terms of style, in terms of presentation, but it's very, very important for readability. So this is not well indented one, indented HTML files. So we're going to actually correct them. But basically, HTML document is hierarchical, so it will be nice to represent a hierarchy with this indentation, and it's easy to debug. And if you use a modern programming editor, they will take care of it typically, which means that, like I don't know if you noticed, but let me like type this thing on the fly, H1, and then if I press enter, and then now you have this 2 space indented. And then if I press enter again, it's still indented, so it's going to keep indentation. But if I close it, it's going to put this closing tag to the same level. I think it was supposed to put it under same level, but I don't know why it does not. But this is like a main way. So if it was a block element, we put line breaks after the starting tag and before the closing tag, so that you can see this is like a block element. For inline element, you don't have to do that. So obviously, each nested content should be indented exactly once inside of its surrounding tags. So if you have 2 div, and then you have this indentation part, and then indented space, and so forth. And then content, it should be done with the line breaks, so that you can see that this is a block element. For inline elements, treat them like a text or content. Comments, before we do comments, let's do indentation. So I wonder if there's a way to automatically indentation, auto indent. Okay, that's good. Ta-da! Save it. edit lines, auto indent. Okay, now it's automatically indented, which is cool, but I could have done more precisely using this, having this line breaks for block elements. This is fine. This is fine too. And I don't think we need extra space. But you know, having extra space helps in terms of readability. Because it's like extra space is not going to be parsed and then does not change the presentation. Okay, so I think this is well indented. Like one exception to what we learned today is that body document, body body element, we do, and head element, we do not add like indentation. We just put it under the same level of HTML element, which is the root element. Okay, so comments. I don't know if you noticed, but basically this is comments. Like you use this like less than sign, and then you have to put exclamation mark and dash dash, and then close with dash dash and greater than sign. And this is how you can put how you can comment your code. So let's say this is header, and then maybe you can put stuff like end of header. But again, comments and indentation does not change anything at all. Like it's basically the same website, but you can see there's like a comments in the code as well, which is useful for debugging and then structure your code and then make your code readable. And then like it's basically the same thing that you would hear in other software engineering courses. We have looked at these special characters like greater than sign, less than sign. Is it true? It's actually the other way around. And then space is this particular thing. So remember in the beginning, I wanted to have a lot of space in between. Maybe here, this does not get parsed because like all the extra spacing will be ignored. But if I use this, it is actually extra space that appears because like now with this special character, like web browser is going to parse it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna like resume from this particular part because this is relevant to CSS as well. Let me actually see what we have. Okay, almost there. So one thing that you will probably want to know because of the quiz is this particular sentence. Basically, ID is used to assign a unique identifier to an element in the document. So ID and class is basically an attribute, a global attribute, which means that any HTML element can have ID or class. Basically, it's an identifier, and then you can have only one value within the document. Class is basically used to classify elements into groups. So basically, this is one example. Let's just grab this guy and put it on our website. I don't know why I would have like a bunch of phone number of people in my website, but basically this particular part is like telephone number. So even though it looks exactly the same, I gave them I used this span element and then use class, and then name a class a tel, which is basically stands for telephone, and then close with the span tag. Again, it does not do anything in terms of appearance or presentation or behavior, but now it has like its logical conceptual group, so that we can actually, let's say, if I want to present like telephone number in different color later using CSS, I should be able to use this class to access this particular element. Okay, so again, you would have to be able to like search any HTML information based on what you need, and then because we're not going to cover everything, like, but basically this is something that we're going to cover next time. Other than that, I think we are ready for quiz. Canvas. So quizzes. It has 7 questions. I'm gonna put require access code, and only those who watch this video will know what the access code is. What would I do? Thank you for watching my lecture. Okay. Thank you for watching my lecture with no space. That's the access code. And then I'm gonna make it available until Sunday night, or yeah, Sunday night is fine. And publish. You don't have to do it today. Like you can wait until next lecture. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna allow multiple attempts. Allowed attempts is maybe 3 times. So you can try and then, go back again, go back to the lecture material again, and then solve the quiz again. Okay, I think that's it for today. I think I went way over. Again, the reason why I had this extensive lecture recording is because for those who have never used the HTML code, I would like you to do it in your own pace, and then this recording, because it's going to be available in the Canvas up till until the end of the semester. It would be nice for you to come back and see what I did and so forth. Okay. I guess I'm gonna post this HTML file to Canvas. I don't know if it's gonna help, but let me post it so that you can see and grab any text. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you Thursday. Bye. And how do I stop recording? Stop sharing. Okay, bye-bye.